Don't forget the video.
Hi there, everyone. Welcome to the final session. I don't know whether I'm excited or really quite sad about it, but we've got some amazing speakers for your final session this afternoon who are CEOs and got various experience in lots and lots of things. So it should be really, really interesting. But I'll give you a little sneak preview into who we've got coming along this afternoon. So there you go, a little sneak preview into who we've got coming up. So our first guest is our dentist, Ruth. Ruth is practicing dentistry right now, as you can imagine. So what we were able to do is we were able to meet up with her one evening this week and ask her a few questions on your behalf. So we're going to show you that interview, but do please get your questions in. If you have access to the YouTube comments on the right-hand side, then please add your questions in there. If you are sitting in a classroom and your teacher has got the YouTube this up on the board, then either your teacher can add to the comments, or we've also got a form where you or your teachers can add questions that you've got for anyone on the panel. So you just need to go to that bit.ly/JAGFCQA21 link. So if you put that link into a browser or onto a device if you're allowed, then you can ask questions directly and we'll put those to the speakers as well. Your questions make it go a lot more interesting, so get them in as we go through. But what I'm going to do first is I'm going to bring in our recording with our dentist, Dr. Ruth.
Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Ruth. I am a general dental practitioner, which is just a general dentist, and I've been doing this for 5 years this summer. Yeah, that's a bit about me.
Yeah, thank you for joining us. We're obviously keen to make sure we cover lots of different sectors. And I know that dentistry will be one that many students will be interested in finding out a little bit about. Hopefully they've all visited regularly, but they can also obviously find out a bit more about the route that you've taken to get there. So yeah, what does your sort of day-to-day role involve?
So I guess it's pretty routine. It's pretty similar. So I work Monday to Friday, and I generally start at about 9, sometimes 8, and finish at about 5, sometimes 6. And my day is basically seeing patients the whole day. I see patients for general checkups. I see patients in pain. I see children. I see elderly patients. I see patients who need a basic scale and polish. I see patients who need full mouth treatment. So in terms of the clinical work that I do, is pretty varied. But generally, I offer dental treatment the whole day, and basically just try to improve the oral health of my patients.
Now, obviously, we've all got experience, if we go back, of like going to the dentist under normal circumstances. But for the last year and a half, I assume that your role has changed somewhat. What were the changes to your role when obviously COVID hit and we went into various lockdowns?
Yeah, so it is come back to normal now. It's come back to like pre-pandemic situation in terms of what we can do and what we can offer, and my general day-to-day. But I mean, for the first 3 months we were shut, so all general dental practices were shut, and so most of the help I could give to my patients was through the phone and through video consults. And then when we were allowed to go back to work, initially I was just seeing emergency, so just lots of pains, patients with facial swellings, patients with really bad toothache, and just kind of just doing enough to get them out of pain without doing anything too invasive. But that has phased its way. We've slowly got back to doing routine dentistry now. So I know you've got a dental appointment coming up, so hopefully when you go, it will be, nice and normal, be able to have everything done without any kind of concerns or having to delay any treatment. So, so it has gone back to normal, but initially it was a lot of just triaging and dealing with emergency patients only.
Yeah, because obviously everyone's been adapting through this time. So, to the teachers who are watching with their classes, please get any questions that you've got in, and we'll pass those on to Ruth to get those answered as much as we can. Also, you may want to pause and just sort of reflect on your own dental experiences in the classroom at this point. But what I want to ask you next, Ruth, is around the journey to get to where you are now as a practicing dentist. I think a lot of the young people want to know, what are the qualifications they might need if they wanted to follow in your footsteps?
Yeah, so I mean, my journey wasn't so straightforward. So I mean, I did my A levels. I got quite good grades. I did quite a bit of volunteering. I had some work experience behind my, on my personal statement, but I didn't have a tremendous amount because no one in my family was from a dental background, so it wasn't actually easy at all to get some dental experience. Because most dental practices, you kind of had to know somebody to get your foot in the door to be able to observe. I had some, but I guess maybe not enough. So the first time I actually applied, I didn't get a place initially. This was in year 12 when you apply for UCAS. And so, but I was offered a deferred entry from Sheffield University. So there are about, I think, 11 or 12 universities in the UK that offer dentistry. So there's not many. And on UCAS, I think you can only apply for 4 medical or dental schools for medicine or dentistry. So you don't have, you're not spoilt for choice. You can only apply for 4. And so, so I actually ended up taking a gap year and I reapplied. Second time's a lot more successful. But I used that year to really get some more clinical experience. And so I was able to get work experience at kind of local authority run dental services. So like the community dental services and within the hospitals, like NHS hospitals, where I was able to do some work experience in the dental departments. And that really helped strengthen my case and I guess my experience, and definitely helped a lot with my application because the second time like I said, I was successful and I got a place. I studied at Queen Mary's University in East London. It's a 5-year course. So the pathway, I mean, in terms of what you need is clinical experience. So you try and get as much clinical experience you can in this various backgrounds. So I did mine in hospital and community dentistry. I did 2 weeks also just in general practice. I actually met a guy, a dentist in the community dental services who knew I was struggling to get some work experience in a general practice, like your high street practice. And he was able to get in contact with his uncle who owned a practice in, I think it was in Bermondsey, and so I was able to do work experience with his uncle for 2 weeks, and that worked out quite well because I was able to put some general experience on my personal statement. So you obviously need the grades. I think you need to have at least 1 science or 2 sciences. I did biology, chemistry, and maths, and some clinical experience, and then obviously they're hot on things like doing volunteering and extracurricular activities, showing that you're a team leader, showing that you are able to participate in things other than academic things, just to help have a good balance of life, because it can be quite a stressful career and quite demanding academically. So they want to see that you can do other things, that will de-stress your life or kind of balance out your life, and it's not just purely academic. So that's what you need to kind of get in.
Cool. You seem pretty focused in terms of the route that you took. Thinking back to kind of like your year 11 days, did you always know that you wanted to work in dentistry, or you followed that path?
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, in year 10, I remember we had to do work experience, and I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what career I wanted to take. I don't think many people in year 10 really do know, or can be sure to know that they definitely want to do take a specific route. And so I actually did work experience at just a recruitment consultancy company that my sister was working at the time part-time while she was at university. And then, but that made me think, well, I don't want to do this. I want to do something different than this. And I think it was around that time actually when I was thinking about careers and thinking I don't want to do this. I think I had a dental appointment actually, and dentist that I had, she was really lovely. It was not one that I usually had, dentist I usually had, and she was just really nice, and she was just really nice. And then I asked if I could come back and observe her, and she was like, yeah, you're more than welcome to. And from there I realized, oh, well, this could be a good career for me. I'm quite good at science. I like working with people. I love the idea of healthcare, working in that industry. And then after that, I was like, well, this is what I'm going to do. And then that's literally what I did. I would have done those A-level subjects anyway, because those are the topics I were good at and enjoyed. But I guess finding a practical kind of tangible thing I could do with a science degree or science A-levels, knowing that could be dentistry was just like, oh, this works out really well. And that's what I did. And then I applied. Like I said, I didn't get in initially, and then I did get in. And then the rest is history. You're on a strict 5-year pathway. There's no, you do dentistry, you do a dental degree and you become a dentist. There's not much else you can do. Yes, there are lots of specialities, believe it or not, within dentistry, but you're doing different types of dental treatment,
It's interesting to get that balance, because we've had speakers on who said they had A-levels and a degree which bears no resemblance whatsoever to what they do now. And so a lot of the young people will have seen that. And obviously it's really nice to have you on where, I saw I discovered what I wanted to do, and there's a very clear path to doing that. And obviously you had to there's a lot of steps along the way, but that clear outcome. So in terms of, I had a rather long interview with Ruth. So what we're going to do is make the rest of that one available to you. We'll put it available by a link, and we'll send it out to everyone that's signed up. So you got an insight there into Ruth's career into dentistry, some of the qualifications. So if you are one of the students out there working on the worksheet in your school with your teachers around, then some really interesting things there about the route that Ruth took. She said she needed lots of experience, and she didn't know enough dentists to get that, but she managed to find ways to get experience in dentistry. So is the career you're thinking about something where you need to get experience? And also a good question, or a good point she made, she did some experience which told her what she didn't want to do. And that can be as valuable as finding out what you do want to do. So have a think about that. Put that down in your worksheet if that's of interest. And what we're going to do now is introduce our next guest. So I'm really, really pleased to be able to introduce you all to Will today. Hi there, Will. How are you doing?
Hi,
hey,
Will.
Ben. Yeah, really well. Hi, Marika. Nice to see you guys.
Awesome. Thank you for joining us. So what I'll do is I'll pass over to you to do an introduction into who you are, and then we'll start asking you a few questions about the journey to that point, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, happy to. I'm the CEO of a startup. We're a software company. We're about 10 people now, and we're called Moat. And I founded the company. I co-founded it with a friend who's a great colleague in January 2020. So we've been going about 18 months. And initially it was just the two of us. We've now grown to about 10 people. And the product we create is a software tool that makes it easy to create voice messages in Google Docs and in Google Classroom and Forms. And we've seen it used a lot with schools in the UK and around the world. And we're just growing the business at the moment. And we'd love to tell you more about, I guess, my journey and what it's like to be a CEO and how you can think about this as a career option.
Yeah, thank you. And I imagine there might be some teachers and students watching who have had the privilege of using Mote as well. Really great tool for some verbal feedback. And obviously, I mean, you started working on Mote before the pandemic hit. That's right, isn't it?
Yeah, that's right.
And I can imagine that it has probably been accelerated in terms of your development of using that verbal feedback in a situation all of the students watching will have been in over the last year and a half.
Yeah, I'd love to hear it. I'd love to see if there's any comments and anyone have anything to share. But that's right. We designed it because we thought there was a growing need for better ways for communicating when you're working remotely. And to be honest, initially we didn't think of it as a product primarily for schools. But when the pandemic happened, and we just launched, and we saw so many teachers using Mote, we decided to really focus on that. And that was where we call it product market fit, right? It's the product with something we built, and the market is your users. And do people find it? Do they love it? Do they share it? And I think there's this magic moment where people find your product and they like it so much, they keep using it and they recommend it to their friends. And when you find that and you have that going for you, that is an amazing way to grow a business quickly. And that's what we had last year. And that's something that every startup dreams of finding. So that's what we had, and that's what we're working to sort of maintain as we grow our business.
So if I can ask an initial question around, you're the CEO of Mote, you founded the company. So what does your role as CEO involve?
Sure. So it does change every month. When we started in January last year, it was myself and my co-founder Alex, and we were building the product. I was coding. I'm not very good at coding. I had to learn a lot more tricks, but it was the thing that needed to be done. So building the product. Then it was, okay, let's distribute, let's find a path to market, let's start trying to find users. So I spent more of my time finding users, marketing, communicating with users, supporting users, explaining how to use the product, building the website. And over time, my role has continued to evolve because we start to hire people who are specialists and can take on this work. Then I move on and do other things. Another thing you do as a CEO is you try to raise money from investors. And so that's one thing I've had to learn how to do, tell the story, pitch and say, hey, this is why Mote has got a really bright future, and this is why investing in Mote could be a great thing for you. And then also pitching employees. So one of the most important things I do is find talented people to join our team. And so, but month over month, the job changes, which is something I love, right? I love the fact my job changes month by month because I guess I get bored quite quickly. So you don't get bored in a startup.
I think that's a great point there for all of the young people watching about, do you want your job to change all the time, or do you want it to be a sort of very similar day to day? And obviously there, by choosing to start up your own company, you've definitely gone for the make it as challenging and changeable as you possibly can.
Yeah, that's right. So go ahead.
So I was going to ask, obviously you set up the company, but I think a lot of the young people would be interested to know, how did you get there? Is it something you planned to do when you left school? And what's the route to where you are now been like?
Yeah, it was. I love this question because I hadn't really thought about it for a long time. I do remember when I was young, I did think that I wanted to start a company, and then I guess I got distracted by lots of other things going on. And when I left university, I ended up joining a big management consulting company, and I worked there for a few years. And I thought I was going to learn, general business skills, and I definitely did. But it also kind of gets you on a conveyor belt towards a certain kind of career, and it took me a long time to realize that wasn't where I wasn't quite going where I wanted to go, and I would have to step off this conveyor belt at some time and take a risk, right? And that does become a little harder the older you get. The more you have. In my case, I had kids. You get a mortgage. These things get in the way, and it can be a bit scary to step away from all of that to go on your own and start a company. So I do think if you're interested in startups, you're never too young to start. You're never too young to start building those skills and, practice taking risks, learning skills. But in my case, it took me through management consulting. I worked at the BBC. I then moved to the US, and I lived in Silicon Valley for a long time. And there was just a lot of kind of technology and entrepreneurship sort of in the area that got me, really, really excited to sort of start my own company. And that's what I did a couple of years ago.
So with that, you talked about some of the skill sets you've picked up. What are the skills you need for your role? And did you pick those up in some of your previous roles?
Yeah, I was reflecting on this. I'm not sure there's one single set of skills that would mark you out to be successful as an entrepreneur. So I can explain like what I've done and what works for me, but I wouldn't want that to be seen as sort of a hard requirement. But in my case, I'd say, definitely it was learning about great products. Like, what does it take to build really good software? And I was lucky enough to kind of work on some great products and meet really great people, like my co-founder Alex, who know how to, build really reliable, really scalable software, and build with a design to make a great experience for users. So I'd say that understanding of design, even if you're somebody who's you're not sure about that, but maybe you start paying attention to the products you use, whether it be a social network product or Netflix or any products you're using. What works? What do you like them? What are they doing well? Do they make it easy for you to find new things, find new content? Do you find yourself being hooked back in? And the more you start to pay attention to these things, the more aware you are. And I think the more you can start thinking about how you might apply that. So in my case, I'd just say, in addition to that, I think you just have to be someone who wants to keep learning and see that as part of how you want to shape your career. Like I said, my job changes every month. I love that. For some people, that might not be what they want, but it means that I'm always learning something new.
So, we can talk about your own qualifications and whether they had relevance to your role, but I'd also be interested, you're obviously a growing company, looking to hire new and diverse and interesting talent. So for our young people, are there any particular qualifications you're looking for as a growing business?
Yeah, I'd say clearly there are specific skills that are really in demand for startups, and the most obvious ones would be, engineering, software, programming, design, so the ability to design products. And that's not just about making things look pretty, that's being very thoughtful about how to make a delightful experience, so product design, graphic design. These are really important skills, and I know lots of you may be thinking about studying them. Super important, super attractive place to build a career. Data science, a lot of really important roles and jobs in sort of data science, applied statistics. There's more and more data in the world, and people with the skills to sort of develop and understand data are super important. So those are sort of the skill areas, but I guess what else are we looking for? I guess the most important thing is people who are great colleagues and great team players, and also take feedback well. We're a remote team, so this means even before COVID and so on, we wanted to build a company that was fully distributed, and we have team members all around the world. We have one in Australia, 3 in the US, there's 3 of us in the UK, 2 in Greece, 1 in Cyprus, 1 in Poland. We're all over the place, and you wouldn't know because we communicate with each other like we're just in one place. And these are people I feel really close to, and some of them I've never met in person. So you have to be able to get on well, work with the team, and also you have to be able to learn and take feedback well. If something hasn't worked out, that's totally cool. But are you someone who can take that feedback, learn from it, and move on?
So interesting. Like, I like the way you said that you're all at different places, but you work together as one big team. I just want to kind of come back on a point you made earlier. You talked about that as the business is growing, that you're looking for funders. And I found that interesting because I'm sure some of the young people on this call might just feel like if they wanted to start a business, they should have all the money up front. And I can't start a business until I have that money for it to grow.
I mean, it's challenging. There are some people who are lucky enough. So I will tell you, if you go and work for Google for 5 years, you can leave Google and someone will write you a check for a large amount of money and you can go and build a company. But for the rest of us, I didn't work at Google, I didn't work at Facebook. Most people have to prove a lot before investors will give you money. Now, maybe, your friends might give you money, or maybe your rich uncle or your mum, your dad, or might invest in you, but it's, they're investing in you, right? Not necessarily your idea. They're like, can you do something? And really the ability to go, let's say, from 0, which is I've got an idea, to 1, which is I've got a product that people are liking and using, and I've got some sense of traction, I've got something growing. Like, that is it's a difficult thing to do. But if you can prove that you can do that, then that's very attractive to investors who'll say, oh, great, you've proven that you can build something, people want to buy it, and I can see how you can take that to a bigger audience, and I'll help you grow that. Right. So, but yeah, I would say step 1 is focus on that 0 to 1, build something people want to use.
That's it. I think really useful advice there around the realities of it as well. We've asked a question to the students. Would you like to start your own company? I don't know if it will change after hearing about the finances and various things, but hopefully those of you watching, they might have a little think about some of the advice Will's given around how you can look at the products that you like and use. Could they be better? Is there a gap? And then also some of those skill sets. Being good to respond to feedback, that came up earlier in one of our earlier sessions around interview technique with Lauren from Google. So just sort of tying those two things together as well. We are, obviously, we could talk for a lot longer, but we've got some other guests to get to. So I've got kind of one final question, Will, which is, what advice would you give to your teenage self?
Yeah, that's a great question. I would recommend myself 2 things. I'd say, number 1, be willing to take a little more risk. And I would also say, don't go out and spend all your money at the pub. And so what I mean is, in all seriousness, one of the biggest ways that you can succeed, if you want to be an entrepreneur, is be really frugal with your money. And don't get trapped into a high spend lifestyle, right? Now that may not sound very glamorous, but hear me out. Like, that is how you set yourself free, and that's how you can save up money. You can then have what we call burn rate. Like, you have a very low burn rate, and so you can have a longer time to grow your business before you need to get external funding. So again, I would advise myself. That would probably be what I would tell myself to do, is be a little more, and I know it's really hard, because I had student debts, I had all these things, but still, be as tight, manage your money as tightly as possible.
Great advice.
Solid advice for a lot of us.
Yes.
I would normally leave the questions till the end, but we've got one quite specific one, which was from Gerald, who says, can your software help put some documents, writing articles and film scripts and TV shows together?
I think so. Yeah, I'm not totally sure how you'd be using it, but definitely I have a friend who's a songwriter, and he collaborates using Mote with a friend. He lives in LA, and his friend lives in New York, and they collaborate together using Mote, like recording voice notes on lyrics. They'll write the lyrics and they'll sing the notes over the top. So I think Mote's a great tool for creative collaboration.
Excellent question there from Gerald. Also, a reminder to everyone watching: if you fill in the feedback form, if If you fill in the Q&A form, we do have 6 £50 vouchers for Amazon for those that have contributed great feedback and great questions. So keep those questions coming in. If it's the teacher filling in the feedback form, then obviously that voucher needs to go via the teacher to one of you that's asking them to put those questions in. It's not for the teachers, it's for you young people. Just a little reminder there. Will, thank you so much for your time today. If you do have time to stick around to the end, we can obviously throw a few more questions at you, but we appreciate you've got a business to grow, and that's a very busy lifestyle. So if you need to head out, we understand that completely. But thank you for giving up a bit of your time to share that insight into starting up a company, growing it through a pandemic, and all of the various challenges, and obviously massive rewards that come with doing that. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
Awesome. That was really interesting. And I know you'll probably want to find out more. So please keep the questions coming in. Don't forget there's comments on the right-hand side, and there's also the form. And in the comments, you'll be able to see that form. And we'll also have it ticking along the bottom regularly, just like now. Okay, so our next guest is Gillian. So really, really pleased to welcome Gillian into the stream. Hi there, Gillian. How are you?
Hi. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for joining us. What I'll do is I'll pass over to you to do an introduction into yourself, your role and what you do. And then we'll obviously, as with Will, we'll ask you a few questions about that role and kind of how you got there. If that's okay?
Okay, that's fine. So, okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Gillian Lilico. I work for a company called Glenman. We're a construction company based here in the UK and in Ireland. We're probably about 30 million turnover, and we employ about 40 staff, contracts managers, design managers, quantity surveyors. And what we do is that we bid for public contracts, and if we win, then we have, we employ teams who manage the construction of those buildings. So we tend to be involved in the construction of houses, social housing, schools, primarily. And we've done a few hospitals and hotels and leisure centers as well. So that's a bit about the company. My role within the company is head of bids and social value. So that's what I'm going to chat to you about today. I'll tell you a bit about what the role entails, what I do on a day-to-day basis, maybe my sort of career path into this current role, and any other questions that you might have.
Awesome. Thank you for that brief overview. So construction is the industry, but obviously for a lot of the young people, they'll be thinking of people sort of physically putting concrete and steel together. But that's not exactly your role. So what does a sort of typical day in your role look like?
Yeah. So every day we get what's called tender alerts for various opportunities. It could be to build a school, build a block of flats, and so on a day-to-day basis, those opportunities will come in. I'll discuss that with my director to decide whether we're a good fit for the project, and we'll make a decision as to whether we're going to bid for the project or not. Once we make a decision, that can happen every day. I put that on my pipeline of work or bids that I have to manage. In parallel to that, I'll have bids that I'm preparing for submission. So my role would involve looking at the questions that the clients have asked. So typically in a construction project, the client would be interested in what team you're going to put on the project. So I have to demonstrate via written word, the skills and experience and qualifications and past, projects they've done to demonstrate a good fit. The client would also be interested in health. Construction is can be very dangerous. So we have to explain what we're going to do to keep our staff, members of the public, and visitors safe. So if I'm looking at a question on health and safety, I am not the expert on that. So I would have to potentially go to our health and safety manager and say, this is the question, this is the site. They're asking us how we're going to keep people safe. And then I would get her feedback and I would translate that into the written word. We'll get asked questions as well as to how we're going to ensure that we build a building that's, safe, watertight, fireproof. Again, I will talk to the design manager or the contracts manager and put together an answer that will answer those questions. So a bid could come in with typically, probably on average 8 questions. It could be sometimes as much as 20 questions. And my role would be to look at those questions. It's almost like answering an exam and just making sure that we're putting the best response possible. I do have to work when we're building projects, they cost money as well. So I work hand in hand with a role called the estimator. That person would be responsible for looking at the building, looking at the size, looking at the scope, and creating, making sure that we develop a realistic price that will, allow us to build a building and make a profit. Hand in hand with that, more and more, the clients that we work for in the public sector are interested in making sure that we not only go out there and build a building, but we also create benefits in the communities in which we work. So for any live project that's on the ground that we're delivering, we want to make sure that we're employing local people or employing local contractors. And my role is to create a plan that the site can then implement to make sure that, they're being a good neighbor to the communities around the site, making sure that, we do things like volunteering. So for example, in Christmas of last year, we did a big food bank drive. I'm doing this careers presentation today, but it's things like that, making sure that we not only build a building, but we also provide a benefit into the communities in which we work. So that's the other part of my role.
That's really interesting to hear. I mean, it sounds like a very wide-ranging role. You're obviously bringing in lots of different people to work with you.
Yes.
Just for some of the young people who might not have heard the word tender before, what is a tender and who's offering them up? Okay,
so so you've heard from the previous speaker who had a startup company. Let's say, for example, he wanted to get someone external in to do some, and I'm not going to stick to construction, to do some graphic design for his business or to do some marketing. He would himself say, okay, this is what I want, in terms of a marketing brief. I'm not an expert in this, so I'm going to go out to the market, and ask people who specialize in that to bid for the work. So that's what a tender is. It's a written document or a written brief that says, this is what I want. I want to build a school, or I want some HR consultancy services. And in order for me to make the best judgment as to who's the best person to do that for me, I'm going to ask some questions and ask those specialists to answer those questions. Another form of that is, sometimes it doesn't come in the form of a written brief. It could just be turning up in front of a client and pitching for some work, just doing a presentation. So it could take that form. So in my role, because it's a public sector and because they're spending public money, they're governed by a lot of rules. So contracts of a certain value for construction, it's over, let's say, I think about £3 million, have to be advertised via what's called an invitation to tender. So we get now it's not paper anymore. We get them all electronically. So we could get as much as 60 documents which have to be read, and it'll give us a deadline for submission. And my role is to make sure we're writing that tender and also that we're delivering it within the deadline. Because in the public sector, if they said, for example, I've got one going in at 12 o'clock tomorrow, so we can't submit it late. So that's one skill that I've got to have, that time management skill, to make sure that we're submitting via the deadline, because 12 o'clock on the 8th means 12 o'clock on the 8th, not 1 second later. So I hope that helps you to understand what a tender is.
Yeah, that was really useful. Thank you so much for that. Yeah. So you talked about a few skills that you have got for your role. So maybe if we go to that bit next, what skills and knowledge are essential for a role similar to yours?
So I would first say, I think you have to be a person. If I was employing someone to write bids, I'm first going to be interested in their personality. So for me, I think a strength of mine is that, I've got empathy. So I'm able to put myself in someone else's shoes. And, I've evaluated bids as well. And, I've seen bids that have come in, or tenders that have come in, where it's all about the company and not about the client. So you have to be able to step into somebody else's shoes, like the client's shoes, and says, okay, if I was in their shoes, what would I want? And then I sort of write that in the written word. You have to be able to, so I just want to be very clear about that. You have to be able to write, and you have to be able to, if you're a student who's good at doing exams and responding to questions, you'd probably be good at writing bids, because writing bids is like looking at questions and doing an exam. That's what I'm doing every day in my life. So you have to be able to look at questions, answer them, and write them down. Now, you do, as you progress in your career, you might come out of the writing and just go into the management, which probably that's where you're looking at more leadership and communication and the ability to bring people together in order to deliver a written submission. So some of the things that I've got up on there on the slides, writing, leadership, organizational. As I said, you have to submit it on time. Research. If I'm going to write a bid, so for example, tomorrow the one that I'm submitting is for a client whose original property had burnt down and they now have to rebuild it. So, there are going to be certain things that I want to find out about the background so I can make sure that I'm covering that in my answers. Sector knowledge is advantageous, but I think, if you're a person who's, interested in learning about different sectors, then that's good as well. When I started this particular role, I didn't know a lot about construction, but I just made sure that I made myself knowledgeable about the industry and what's important to the industry. I'm not great at creative and graphic design. So as the previous speaker said, he may bring in people with those specialist skills. That's also, a sort of complementary skill that you can have if you're able to, create pretty pictures or, create diagrams or graphics. That's good as well. I mean, other related, sort of skills that I would depend on is someone who's good at construction photography to take photographs of our people or finished buildings as well. But the ones that I've got up there on the screen are basically the ones that are necessary for this role.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And actually, if I may, there's a student question that's just come in. If I can put that to you now, which is, what kind of GCSE or A-level qualifications lead to a job like yours in construction?
And okay, so if you're looking at construction specifically, is it construction or is it my role? Because there'll be two different things. I mean, if you're looking at construction and you're looking at becoming a quantity surveyor or a design manager, those roles you tend to probably study. I'm not saying you have to study the sciences, but certainly at university, you might study something like architecture or civil engineering or quantity surveying itself. So you'd be looking to do those roles if you're going into construction proper. For my role, I think I just sort of fell into this really. My degree was in computer science, and I think the sort of skills I learned from my computer science degree was just being analytical and problem solving and, wanting to get to the facts. And then I did a master's in international business. And I think how that helped me is it just allowed me to understand how businesses work. So, if I'm answering a question on quality, I'm comfortable with that. If I'm answering a question on communications, I'm comfortable with that as well. So, I didn't plan to get into this particular role. I think, a set of circumstances just led me here. I spent half of my career, so I've been working for about 30 years now. I spent half of my career in IT project management, and then the next half in this sort of area.
Cool. Thank you for explaining the difference in between construction and your role. That was really helpful. In your current role, what would you say is your proudest moment to date?
So I'm always proud. I mean, obviously, when when we win a bid. So, when we've won bids, that's always a cause for celebration. And I think that's one good thing about this role is that, I'm at the cold face of it. I'm responsible for bringing work into the business. And I'm either winning or I'm losing. And, we don't win all the time. So when we lose, it can be a bit of a downer. But when we win, it's also good. But on the other hand, what I've been really proud about is working with some organizations to bring more women into the company. And I can have to say that, what I've done over the past 2 years is actually provided opportunity for some individuals who found it hard to break into the construction sector. And, I'm proud of that, but I'm also proud of the way that my organization, and I think this is something you need to think about, going into a career. So I work for a very small organization. 40 is not a lot of people. So, if you're working for an organization with, let's say, hundreds of people, you have to go through a lot of red tape. It's like calling the bank and, applying for a loan. It doesn't matter about your personal circumstances. They're going to go by a set formula. So working with a small organization, it's been good to have the ear of the director and for him to see the benefit of, encouraging a diverse set of people with different backgrounds to come into the organization. And so, I'm really happy that I've been able to do that over the past 2 or 3 years.
Just as we wrap up, I'd love to ask a follow-on question to that is, What would you say to young women watching this who maybe haven't thought about a career in the construction industry because maybe they think it is not necessarily a place they expect to see themselves?
I would definitely say, explore it. It's either for you, as with any career, it's, I think what all students have to do, you're so fortunate. I wish I had the opportunity when I was your age to have all these various, career stops where I could try to pinpoint or find something that connects with me. And, so construction is a great career because it can be very well paid. If you're working on the sites themselves, and a career like mine can be very well paid. I mean, we in the grand scheme of things, we don't apply for huge contracts. Our biggest one has been 11 million. But my role, you've got companies who bid for, if you're bidding to build Heathrow Airport or one of the terminals, that's hundreds of millions of dollars. So you can imagine the person who's managing that bid, how much money they're paid. I would definitely say, buildings are all around us, the built environment, and it's all around the world. So you can have a career all around the world. You don't have to be on site. That's not, I don't like the cold. I don't like being muddy and wet and dirty. So I'd never want a career on site, but so I'm in the office most of the time. So, you've got the office-based roles. Most of the people who manage the contracts or projects don't work on site. They work in the office. So the quantity surveyor who's responsible for managing the cost, he or she they don't work in the office, on the site, they work in the office, even though you do have some construction companies who, may have that role that's site-based. But I would definitely say, for, young women or, if you have an open mind and, go along, do these talks, do some work experience, and see whether it's for you. But there are definitely opportunities, and it definitely can be a rewarding career.
That's really, really useful. And thank you so much for sharing your time and experience and insights with us, Gillian. Really fascinating to hear about the bidding for large projects. Obviously, like a very challenging but exciting role to be in. My degree was actually civil engineering, so in answer to that student, I did a lot of maths, both GCSE and A level, and then my university course involved a lot of maths for my civil engineering degree. But as Gillian, you've very nicely pointed out, it's not the only role within the organisation, so lots of options. Obviously, there might be a few questions coming in later on, so if you're around and able to take them, that would be fabulous. But as you said, I think you said you've got a bid due tomorrow.
That's correct, yes. Yeah.
So equally, I can appreciate if you need to focus back on that in preparation for that. Because as you said, the deadline is the deadline. So thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. And if it's okay, yes, I'm going to leave the call now. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Gillian.
All right,
Have a great rest of the day.
Okay.
Awesome. The cut and thrust of a real working life there as well. Right, we have one more guest before Lawrence comes back in and sort of wraps up the week. So really, really, really pleased to welcome Kenny. Hi there, Kenny. How you doing?
Hey, how you doing?
Really, really good. Really, really good. So technically, is this headline slot because we're the last one there?
Closing it off.
Awesome. What I'll do, I'll pass over to you and let you introduce yourself, and I'll also bring up a few slides just to sort of visually share what you do, because I think the visual adds a lot of context to your role. So over to you, Kenny. I'll let you introduce yourself.
Thank you, Ben. So yes, my name's Kenny Allen Jonathan. I am the founder and CEO of the Mailroom consulting and marketing agency within sports. My journey as an entrepreneur, I guess with the Mailroom is probably my third or fourth. I wouldn't like to say attempt, because some of the businesses that I previously ran are still currently running. But this will give you a better insight into my latest venture, should I say. Okay, so through the slide here, the first one is who we are. Just to give it a bit more context and just kind of speed through things. The Mailroom is a marketing and consulting agency where our job really is to add value to athletes off of, or outside, should I say, of their professions or their sports. Let's just move on to the next slide. So where it says why us, I think in a world where sports marketing has come extremely flat, we tried to bring dimension, because we understood that there was a gap in the market where a lot of the key interests of our athletes within this day and age are being overlooked, or the mainstream media are controlling the narrative of who they are. So what we wanted to do is dive deeper and get their personal image across to the public organically and in ways that they felt comfortable with expressing themselves. Okay, so building a brand. All right, so the main key areas that we focus on are, let me just get this up so I can see it properly also, is marketing, creative, public relations, and partnerships. These are just some of the departments that I think are very vital when it comes to trying to amplify profiles for our athletes or our clients. Reason being is because, again, with public relations, we want to make sure that they're communicated in the right way, understanding that each story has its own lane, but necessarily doesn't sit on every platform. So what we try to do is connect them with the right platforms to tell those stories. From a creative perspective also is that I guess traditional sports marketing has been the same for so many years. We try to bring a bit more diversity within it. So how their image is portrayed, again, with the media outlets that they sit on, even down to the creative and long form and short form storytelling that we have. So what we try to do is package, these four sections into one, and these are kind of the entities that build up and make up, the image of an athlete. Okay, so the benefits, I guess, with our clients working with us is the understanding that we know the sectors that, that we're diving into. I guess there's a difference between someone who controls a social media account and a marketeer, understanding that your tone of voice and how you portray yourself to the public, and every caption that you put out ideally is a stepping stone to another realm. Meaning, if there's areas that you want to get into, or there are audiences that you have that you want to reach, your tone of voice and what you emit out to the public is extremely important. So with our team, so quite a small and family orientated team, what we do is we have specialists that focus in and home in on the messaging that is put out to the masses. And again, just to, not so I'm just repeating myself again, you can see here the creative side of it, which I've previously explained. Campaign management, again, when it comes to working with third parties or brands that we work with very closely, is understanding the scope of work that, you know, that they want, understanding our clients' needs, and also understanding the brand's needs, and how do we merge those worlds. Next slide, please. So again, this goes back to the public relations side of things. Is what do we do to portray the image of the athletes or the clients that we represent? And a few ways that we do this is by, again, messaging or organic stories, but putting them in places that feel comfortable for them. So Wilfried Zaha, who plays for Crystal Palace, I'm sure a few of you guys on here would know who he is. You know, he's someone who's very outspoken, known for his flair style of play, known for his fashion sense. So what we try to do is break down a lot of those sections, and then what we would do is put them out and allow him to tell his story in the best way possible, but just help him to tweak a few things to make sure that message is being put across through the right publications also. Next slide, please. Again, it's the same with Leon Bailey, targeting a few of his interests, and just making sure that message is put across. And then the next one, please. Danielle Carter, who was at Arsenal and is now at Reading. Again, it's the same. Understanding, again, with the women's game where, you know, it's still fairly new. I think it's a bit more challenging, but that's a task that we've been set by our clients to make sure that we are consistently and continuously understanding the realms that we work within and understanding our clients and their needs. So just making sure that her story is put across in the right way. Sports Direct. So this is another one of our clients. His name's OJ Odeborum. He was the 2019 100 meters Commonwealth champion. This was a campaign that we shot all in-house for Sports Direct. It was actually for the 2021 ones to watch, actually. So yeah, this is part of our creative scheme. So, and also storytelling. So this was a dual campaign, actually. This was a store fit for all the Sports Directs and JD Sports on behalf of Adidas. But also on the back end of this, there was a creative campaign around video, which was showing his journey up to this point and preparing for the Olympics. Again, creative content. Wilfried Zaha, as you can see on the right-hand side, and his campaign for Men's Health magazine, which was based on the body issue. And the same with Mikel Antonio. So again, this was more about body types. It was about fitness. It was about the natural ability to play. And some people it's based on genetics and others it is based on performance. But again, it was our job to tell their stories organically and make sure that people understood just, you know, there's healthy eating habits, and then other people is based on genetics and how that affects their style of play within football. There you go. Just a nice picture that we took of OJ.
Sorry, a bit slow on there, and they're coming back in. That was amazing to get that overview. Yeah. And I think you've shown that there was a gap, it sounds like, in the sports marketing market that you saw an opportunity in. Is that a fair description of how you got started?
Yeah, no, most definitely. I think through time I've realized that I try to be a problem solver. I say try because when you're naturally around a lot of gifted people or talented people, you tend to see, okay, but hold on, why is this not done this way? Or, you know, I look at the mainstream media, and whether it's about inclusiveness or, you know, representation of the minority or even the masses, I just always thought they never really delve deeper into who the talent really is. It's kind of really face value. So I just wanted to make sure that, you know, especially with the younger athletes, that they was portrayed in the right way.
So that leads me on nicely to kind of what I would like to ask you next. So you've kind of given us an overview of what you do. What does a kind of typical day look like? So for the students that are listening out there, we know generally what you do, but what do you kind of do day to day? How do you push for all these different campaigns?
Nothing. So I guess start a little bit just before that. So I guess when we first started the agency, I literally was trying to do everything myself. That it worked up to a certain point until I had to turn it into a business and we picked up more clients. So a day-to-day really for me is delegating with my team, staff members, which are specialists within each area. We're a marketing agency, so everyone has a level of understanding of marketing, but that would be with the finance team, the social media managers, the campaign managers, and just really breaking down all of our commitments for our talent. So, and then it would just be about delegating, speaking to our third party representatives and seeing what we can do on behalf of our clients to make sure that their images are put forward. So we just break down different sectors of where we kind of see them and carve out a lane. And I'd really like to say kind of be in their eyes, hands and feet and to navigate into those areas, really.
That kind of leads into a student question we've got. So Gerald asked, can celebrities like actors, journalists be more involved in campaigns? So is that part of your almost unique selling point, that you get them more involved, or is it just that you take an insight and kind of display them in the way that they want to be shown?
I'm a bit confused at the question, but I'll try to answer it as best as I can. In terms of can celebrities like actors, journalists, and more be involved in campaigns as well? Yes, well, I guess the good thing about it is I think people are normally thrown off just by the title sports, but we focus on the human element of the athletes, not necessarily what they do on field. So a lot of the campaigns that we do incorporate musicians, actors. I'll give you an example. We recently done a campaign with Wilfried Zaha on behalf of DAZN Media and Budweiser. Had nothing to do with football. Obviously, we understand that is a profession, but myself and Wilfried Zaha have a fashion line together. Sorry, timing.
Was that Wilf?
No, it wasn't. we have a fashion line together. So it was more about focusing on his passions outside. And we actually brought in fashion designers that he has relationships with and musicians to kind of narrate their piece on how they have influenced him to do what he does on the pitch and vice versa. So yes, we kind of work 360 with that, yeah.
Okay. Ben, do you want to go back and up? There we go.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's too many times, isn't it, for me to be allowed to host this thing? We have a question from a teacher on behalf of their students that I assume are in the classroom with them, which is coming in now. Oh, there we go. Got there eventually. How does your company find or attract these celebrities? Great question.
Good question, yeah.
That's a very good question, actually. I guess there's more than one way. There's not necessarily one way to kind of navigate this. I think one is putting yourself out there. We're fortunate enough to live in, the digital age, where social media, down to emails, campaigns, building relationships online and in the real world, being able to reach out. But I think before we even get to that was making sure that we had substance to present to the clients. So understanding that we need to create physical product or visual product that we can say, look, this is what we do. And we believe that there is great value that can be added to you with the services and the skill sets that we hold. So just making sure that we had value that we could then pass on to our clients. I hope that helps.
Yeah, it really does. And obviously, if there's any follow-ups from that in the class or any other sort of students or teachers watching with their classes, please feel free to keep on adding the comments and the questions, and we'll pass them on to Kenny. Marika, I think you wanted to pick up a question next, right?
Yeah, so a bit kind of going back into your personal journey into where you are now. Did you know that you always wanted to kind of start your own business? Was this something you was thinking about when you were your year 11 as a year 11 student, or is this something that you decided later on in life?
It's a tricky one because my highest form of education actually, so it's a bit unconventional to most of the conversations that have been going on, but I just give you my honest truth. My highest form of education was sixth form. The schooling system was great for me. I didn't do as well as I'd hoped or expected, but I did know that I wanted a bit more in terms of, I guess at that point, if I'd gone to university, I probably would have just been following my friends. And I know a lot of people that went there and what they were studying, they didn't end up pursuing later on down the line. And I didn't want that for myself. So I was kind of stuck between a rock and a hard place. So I actually just worked for a long time. But my first business, I started at the age of 17, around 16, 17, which was a hobby that transcended into a business. So I didn't know, but I think as things started to progress, I started to see certain signals that could say it could be a lot bigger than I'm probably viewing it at the moment. And I just kind of tried to react and learn as I went on. But remember, this was a long time before we had a lot of the platforms that we have now. So a lot of my work was physical based, meaning I would have to physically go out and meet people. It wasn't Zooms. It seems funny, but just things like that, just making sure that I was continuously learning, reading books, and just educating myself on the space.
No, I think obviously we've had some people in careers where like medicine and law where there's a route there, but it's really, really valuable for the students to see there's lots of options out there. And I think for a number of them, they might feel very similar to you of they want to get out there and start doing something for themselves. So I think it's really important that they get a real cross section of what careers look like. So has it always been easy once you started working towards this? You just, you got celebrities and it's all been an easy ride, right?
Definitely not. I think it's never easy. I think it gets harder as it goes on, actually, because in the beginning you're very naive, you're having fun, but like anything, when it turns into a job, you've got to learn and understand the arena that you're in a lot more. So no, I'll be honest, it's not. I say to people that nowadays there's like this romanticized version of being an entrepreneur, a CEO, and everyone loves the title. You can go into LinkedIn and there's CEO and founder everywhere. And most people probably couldn't even tell you what the title CEO means or what they do on a day-to-day. I didn't, so no shade at anyone. This is how it was. But I guess for me, it's not easy. It's never been easy, but I just made sure that I continuously learned and tried to find ways to better myself and understand the arena that I'm in, if I'm honest. Yeah,
I think useful for everyone to know that there's not an easy ride and it doesn't stop. And I know you've got one young child, or
I got two.
Yeah. So that adds to it as well.
Yeah, 2 and a wife. So yeah, it does add to it a lot, actually.
So yeah, and there's other things that go around that as well. We've actually had a follow-up question. Oh, sorry, Marika.
Before we go to that follow-up question, can I just pick up, because I think we spoke about it earlier, but you recently tweeted and you said that in terms of your journey and things not being easy, you've been down to your last fiver like many times over, but you wouldn't change that. Do you want to just talk a bit about that? Because I found that really, really interesting.
Yeah. I think really where that came from, I guess, the reason why I love stuff like this careers fair is because I probably was that one young person sitting in a classroom listening to something like this and loved every second of it. But I probably there would have been certain points that I would have been like, there's still a little bit more. So for me, it's more about probably reaching even that one child within a classroom that says, maybe going down to higher education isn't for me, but what do I do after that? So I say that to say this, right? The journey is not easy because it takes a lot more self-discipline. I say that I scrapped a 9 to 5 for a 24/7. So meaning that it takes a lot more effort, but I take a lot more pride in what I do. Not to say people with 9 to 5s don't, but meaning that I know that the success of my company really is based on the amount of work I put in and how disciplined I am with trying to educate myself and work on what is internal. So that reference of being down to my last fiver, meaning that is more than just monetary, is even a mental and physical aspect of I have put everything into what I am doing to make sure that it reaps the rewards of what I am sowing.
I think thank you so much for sharing on that one. Yeah, we've had a lot of moments over the last sort of 2 or 3 days where people have emphasized they don't do what they do for the money. It's nice to have it. It's nice to be comfortable. It might be nice to be able to afford things, but it's not their driving force. And we've had people talk about purpose and values a lot of the way. And I noticed you said like your company is quite strongly connected with family.
Yeah, when I say family, I mean like we class ourselves as a boutique agency. So I guess one of the benefits of this is that I get to work with who I want to work with, meaning we handpick people, but it's more than just your skill sets. It's about how you communicate with people. It's about your perception. It's about your outlook on life. And I guess everyone also that works with us wants to work with us. They understand, yes, there's the glamorous side to it, but they understand the journey that we are on and understand that they also add value to us. So we are very tight knit in terms of we share a lot with each other. I'm really grateful for it.
Oh, that's an amazing insight, and probably sort of leads us then nicely into a question we've had come in again from that same class. So you said you developed 4 businesses. What is the biggest lesson you've learned that you could share with the students?
Ooh, very good.
I know, I better give you some thinking time on that one.
Yeah. You give me an hour? No, I'm joking. One of the biggest lessons, I guess, to think that at your highest points that they will last forever. I think that's also an important part, because there's many high points during your career, and I'm pretty sure there's as I had time to think, I'm probably going to come off this Zoom and think, oh my days, I should have said that. But I guess the one that comes to mind straight away is that I've had moments that have been amazing and felt like this is the buzz that I've been waiting for, and then it ends. And then I'm snapped back into the real world and realize I've got to carry on doing the work. So for me is that, as I said, it's about continuously learning and also trying to improve myself. As I said, I didn't go down the educational route. We didn't have things like Udemy. We didn't have access to things like Fiverr. We didn't have access to things like, these schemes where they pay for you to go on. We didn't have that. So for me, it's just making sure that even at the height of what you're doing, you are consistently and continuously pushing for what is next, because you're only as good as what you've done you're actually what you're doing now, not what you've done previously. Actually, no one really cares about what you've done previously. They want to know what you're actually doing now and what you'll do in the future.
That also sounds like rather sage advice for the England team preparing today as well. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you, Kenny. That's really, really useful, insightful, and interesting. We've had the chance to meet a couple of times, but I've learned a lot about the wider aspect of what you do. So really useful for me, and hopefully really useful for all the students watching. Don't forget, this is available on demand afterwards. So same link. You can get this and rewatch it and go back and delve into the depths of all of our speakers, both today and afterwards. And just a massive thank you to Kenny and all of the speakers we've had over the 3 days. So what I'll do, actually, Kenny, I'll leave you in for a moment, and I'm going to bring in Lawrence, if that's okay. Hey, Lawrence, how are you?
Hello. Thank you for that, Kenny.
No problem at all.
Cool. So, Lawrence, if you didn't catch the introduction, Lawrence set this up last year, identified that young people were not getting the opportunity to get out and do work experience. You weren't getting the chance to get out and meet people like Kenny and Will and Gillian and all the rest of these people. So he set up the careers fair last year during lockdown, and this is the second run of it. So, Lawrence, what How's it been so far? You've obviously had a bit of an overview of all of it. How are you feeling?
I'm feeling really a bit overwhelmed because I'm looking at some of the comments that are coming through from the young people. And actually, one of the comments that are coming through is like, thank you for getting this diverse panel together, because I can actually see myself in the panel. And that feels like they're speaking to them as well. And that's very important to us. You know, far too often when I've been to events is actually, I always think, do I see myself in that panel? Are they speaking to me? So I think that's one of the things we set out to achieve. And I think it's a tick there, definitely.
That's why I want to keep Kenny on, because I know Kenny mentioned about speaking to that one student who's like sitting there in that classroom going, Kenny has just spoken to me directly. And I think that's like what we're hoping to get over the whole one. So if you haven't had a chance to see all of the speakers, you get a chance in there to sort of, see a few others.
Absolutely. And just to add to that, Ben, is I just want to really jump on that point is, like, over the last 3 days, you've had a range of speakers. And for us, it's not about the tens of thousands of numbers watching this. For me, impact is actually if one student in that classroom, you know, who wasn't listening through the whole of it, but actually perked up when someone came on and listened to that, that is impact for me. And it's so important.
Absolutely. So, Lawrence, I'm going to pass over to you in a moment just to kind of really wrap up the 3 days and share some of your wider thoughts. Massive thank you, Kenny. I'll let you get back to your work and family. I think both of those are waiting for you. So thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Kenny.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you very much.
Okay, so I think my reflections, I have listened to so many interesting people talk about so many interesting things. It's been an absolute pleasure to work with you, Marika, throughout the week and provide that foil for me on mute. And I think the important thing, we've got different perspectives. We ask different questions. And I think that kind of links in with the theme of what we're trying to achieve with this as well. But Lawrence, I'm going to give you the stage as we finish off the careers fair, if I may.
Thank you so much, Ben. And I just want to say a massive thank you to Ben and Marika for hosting this session. Well, not this session, the last 3 days. Let's not underplay their role in this. Without you hosting it and asking the questions, it wouldn't be what it was this week. And also thank you for adapting to the feedback that we've received and just like working tirelessly. It might look really easy what we put together, but there's been loads of prep behind the scenes as well. And just to actually make it clear that Ben and Marika are not getting paid. They've volunteered their time to actually do this careers fair because they believe in actually expanding young people's networks as well. So thank you to both of you.
Cool. And feedback, we need more of it. There's definitely areas we can improve. Times are changing, so please provide us with some feedback. Right, Lawrence, I'll leave you to close out the amazing event.
Thank you, Ben. So I just want to start again from the beginning and say thank you for all of you for joining us this week. We've had a jam-packed 3 days. And let's just reflect on some of the sessions that we've had. You've learned how to build a CV and a cover letter. So some of you might have come to this careers fair and never created a CV, or thinking, I've got a CV, but how do I make it great? We've explored how to find what career goals you might be good at, or what careers you might be good at. We've looked at how to apply for apprenticeships, tips on writing a personal statement for university. And one of the best sessions that I've looked at, and I thought, wow, actually, wish I had that when I was young, was student finance and actually how to budget. You've had CV and interview tips from a Google executive recruiter who's taken her time out to speak to you. We've had talks from a wide range of speakers, from a landscape architect, doctor, a vice president from Walt Disney, CEOs, people who are running their businesses, people talking about their apprenticeship journeys as well. So there's been a wide range of people that have spoken to you. When we put this careers fair together, and we were planning it, what I wanted to have at the forefront was giving young people the right utensils. Now, bear with me for a moment. You're thinking, what is he talking about utensils for? That's something we eat with. But I'll come back to that in a moment. A common theme that came through all the talks was that it's okay not to know what you want to do. That's what life is about. It's about finding out what you want to do or finding out what you don't want to do. So I encourage you to keep an open mind. Another theme that came out was where you are today is not where you're going to finish. There are going to be ups and downs in life, but it's about riding that wave. And if you fall off that surfboard, get back on it. You will conquer that wave. We also saw, or heard, should I say, it's okay to fail. Embrace failing. And this leads me on to some advice. Never miss the opportunity to learn. Some of the most important lessons that I have learned have not come from my teachers, a professor, someone with a master's, but actually my mum. My mum had this saying she would say to us, it's better to be 1 hour early than 1 minute late. Right, let me just reframe that, because I'm not giving my mum justice. She would say, you better be on time. That's what she said to me. But that's where I learned the life lessons from my mum. And it taught me that I can learn from any opportunity, from anyone. Never let your ego get in the way of learning. If you think you can or you can't, you are right. I heard Raheem Sterling say actually this week, your mind is either your greatest asset or your greatest weakness. And it's about having a growth mindset. It's about challenging yourself to be the greatest. If you're going to do anything, do it right. Unfortunately, I was told many times in my life that I was average. But now I challenge myself to be great. I am challenging you to be great. Take this information that's been given to you and use it. And this is one of the quotes I would love to add to this. Good enough isn't good enough if it can be better. Better is not good enough if it can be best. Remember that. And the final thing that I would like to leave you with today, that has been our message all the way through this careers fair. Embrace failing. When we fail, we learn some of the greatest life lessons. When we get knocked down, it gives us a chance to build a greater foundation to which to stand upon and stand firm. Life will give you some haymakers, but they will not keep you down. Get back up and finish the round and finish strong and continue to grow. I really hope you've been able to take something away from this careers fair. No matter how small it is. I would like to say thank you to the teachers that have been in the classroom, that have been monitoring this, that have been putting the questions in. I know it's not easy, but we thank you. I'd like to say thank you to Marika and Ben again for their wonderful hosting skills over the last 3 days. I would like to say thank you to our amazing speakers who have just given so much knowledge and I've learned so much from. I would also like to say thank you to the people that have supported this careers fair. As I mentioned, this is all free. It's been put together by 4 people who have volunteered their time because we believe in the next generation. And most importantly, I would like to say thank you to everyone who was tuned in to this careers fair. We really do hope you've taken something from it. We wish you a great summer. I know you still got 2 weeks to go, but just hang in there. But we wish you a great summer. Keep safe and watch out for updates on the careers fair next year. We will be bringing this back and there'll be more information about it. Thank you.